I'm a perimeter explorer, so I'm breaking down the LoRA. What do we really need for character consistency? Klein base 9B from the Flux.2 family. LoRA training locally in the PEFT. Hi kids, this is a punctorial on the LoRA trainer in Draw Things. Draw Things is the image and video generator for Mac, iPad, and iOS. It's free on the app stores. The last two updates unlocked new foundation models for parameter efficient fine tunes. That's the PEFT button on the side rail, the one with the training shoe. I'm not your mama, and this ain't school. Don't have time for some precious fool. Fastest way to learn is to hit the wall. When you break the rules, listen up, I'm gonna learn ya. This is how you make a LoRA. What's the barest minimum for character consistency? Just in time at turbo speed. How many gigs do you need when LoRA training locally in the PEFT? Local don't need a subscription. Do I even need to mention? It's always private on your device. It's uncensored. You kinky beast. Now you're making your own LoRA. Renders faster than the mood board. One picture is all you need for character consistency. Draw Klein base 9B from the Flux.2 family. LoRA training locally in the PEFT. Draw things. Draw things. Draw things. Draw things. Draw things.
All the images you've just seen were made from LoRa's that I trained from single face photos. I'm gonna show you how to make one. It's easy and surprisingly versatile. Now this is a beginner tutorial for the LoRA trainer in Draw Things. It's called the PEFT. That stands for Parameter Efficient Fine Tune, which means LoRA. Now I'm gonna be bucking some traditional wisdom on training, and that's why I showed my results first, because this is a punk approach to making a character LoRA. Punk because we're just gonna jump in and we're not gonna overthink the process. Instead, you're gonna learn by using the LoRA, and it's gonna be so stripped down that you will know exactly what the LoRA is doing and what the model is doing. This is gonna give you a lot of insight into how this works. So let's talk first about the foundation models. So when we train a LoRA, you're going to train on the foundation model, or as close to the foundation model as you can get, and that's going to make the LoRA more universal across that whole family of models. So to be specific, I'm training on Klein 9B base. So the base model is CFG compatible. It's the full model. And what we normally use with 9B is a distilled model. So you want to train on base. It has more information. It is better able to train. And you don't want to train on a distilled model because that's had all the mojo sucked out of it already so that it can run faster. Now the other thing that you want to avoid, although it's not as strong as distilled, you don't really want to train on quantized or 8-bit S models because they are already kind of shaved down, sliced up. If you can, download the exact model. In the model drop-down, they're labeled exact. And these are the models as they were released by the companies. Like if you downloaded it straight from Hugging Face without any quantization, it would be the exact model. So this is the best model that you can pick for training your LoRA. It's also, not coincidentally, the best model that you can render with your LoRA, but it's probably not that convenient to use. And like I said, with the foundation model, if you train at the best quality, it's compatible with the entire family of models. Okay, let's talk about your training data. And for this tutorial, I'm insisting that you use just a headshot. Minimal image prep. It's a person, it's a product shot, one reference image. So when I train for a person, I'm getting their hair, their face, and their bare shoulders on a white background. It's basically a passport photo. Except topless. And I'm only showing the shoulders. Now, this is going to make some people very upset because this is, this ignores a lot of what LoRA training can do. But we're going to use the strength of our models, especially how our new models are so much smarter now. And that's going to replace our need to supply it with a lot of reference images. We just need the face. No one's going to stop you if you want to add more photos, but you're kind of going against the learning process. So, you do you. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not your mother. Now, with the caption, and this is another one that everybody gets up in arms about because there are so many theories. Do the least thing that you can possibly do, since this is a person's head. This is their identity. I want this identity associated with one trigger word. And that's it. I'm not introducing any competing info. There's no background. There's no ambiguity about what I'm labeling with a trigger word. It's this person, this person's head. This is their character identity, the trigger word. I'm not captioning anything extra except the white background. That's the only thing that I want separate from this concept of my trigger word. All right, let's keep going. I'm just going to blast through the hyperparameters. You can follow along. You can, if you want to make adjustments, that's on you, but I suggest you do this the first time. Now for the base model, I already suggested that you select an exact. Mine is Flux.2 Klein 9B base, exact. For the output LoRA name, what you're really naming is your session. Just give it a unique name. and maybe the date if that helps. Trigger word, there is some interface weirdness in Draw Things about when you type in your trigger word, it automatically fills in up above at the top as sort of your default caption, and then you import an image, and anything that is in that default caption space will be copied into each image's captions. There's more to this. All I want to remind you before I over-explain is just double check that your trigger is your actual trigger and that your caption is actually your trigger word, that there's not a misspelling, and it says on white background. Network dim. Use 8 because we're only programming it with one image and one key value pair. So 8 is fine. I did try lower numbers. It didn't seem to make it go any faster, so I recommend 8. Network scale, leave it at 1.0. Upper bound, this is another controversial one. We're gonna cook this LoRA really hard and really punk rock, okay? So the upper bound is 0.0005, which is still a little bit higher than the upper bound. Lower bound is 0.0005, and deja vu, you may notice that's the same number because I'm effectively canceling out the upper and lower bound oscillation. We're just gonna train at one consistent training rate, which is the upper bound rate. That means our steps between restarts is now irrelevant because we're not doing the restart. Basically, every training step is going to be at the same learning rate. So skipping steps between restart. Going down to the image size, this is when you can actually choose. Hit your aspect ratio and multi-scale. And now the ratio is simplified. I recommend 512. It actually looks cleaner on an illustration style. And if you're low RAM, I think it's going to be easier on your system. The next step down is if you want to do additional scales. You can add another value and train at both 512 and 1024. You can even add 2 and train at all 3. I don't recommend that you do this at the first. Go ahead and leave that at 0. Seed is just a random number. Training steps, we'll leave it at 2000. It's going to overcook, but that's okay because we're going to use the weight on the LoRA to make adjustments. Go ahead and leave it at 2000 steps. Save at every n steps. Let's make it 2000 because punk rock, we're not going to be precious and we're not going to save a lot of extra LoRAs here that we're never going to touch. We're just going to make one LoRA saved at 2000 steps. The next one is warm up. Leave it alone. Gradient accumulation. Drag that down to 1. Denoise schedule. Leave it alone. Caption dropout is default 0. Leave it alone. Fixed orthonormal LoRA down. Leave that enabled as default. Power function EMA. Leave it disabled as default. And now we're down at the memory saver. If you have more than 32 gigabytes of RAM, 32, 64, 128, something in that, use Turbo. That is no memory management. If you have less than 32 gigabytes, so maybe 24 or 16 or 8, use Balanced. It will render slower, but because it's memory managing, you will not get into RAM swapping. Now the last one, you have an option between cached waits memory management or just in time, and this is basically the same idea. If you have plenty of RAM, use cached and it will be a bit faster. If you are worried that you're going to run out of RAM or that your RAM memory is less than the full model loaded at once, you can use just in time. Our last option is save to TensorBoard, and this is a beginner's tutorial, so leave that disabled. Circling back to the trainable layers, by default these are all enabled. The bottom 6 are these 3 pairs. Each pair has nearly the same name. And we're going to disable the 3 settings that involve training on the text portion of the model. Now each is labeled context, and you might remember that we don't want to train text, and that context has the word text in it. Now this is going to save training time, and the LoRA file will be smaller, therefore more efficient, but the main benefit is this will prevent the LoRA from damaging the model's text layers. The corresponding pairs, the ones not labeled context, will be training on spatial data. That is the pixels in the image, so when the model generates, it will be able to adjust the image to match the LoRA. Now with the context pairs disabled, it will not change the meaning of our prompt or make text associations with the trigger word. The training is only concerned with how our data looks as opposed to what the words mean. And the very last thing to know is at the top of the PEFT, we have a context menu. It's the 3 dots, and that allows us to copy or paste a training config. And that's it. We're ready to start training. On my M2 Ultra, this takes about 3 hours, but it does not slow down my computer. I have plenty of RAM with 64 gigs. It just runs in the background, and I can still use the computer. Once the training is finished, the LoRA is automatically imported, and you're going to find it in the LoRA manager list. And we can go directly from the PEFT with the tab at the bottom. Find the new LoRA in the list and open the 3 dots button. Here we have options to quantize down to 16-bit or to 8-bit. And we can export the LoRA for other devices and even other apps. Now on export, we can rename the LoRA file. And be sure to save and document your trigger word somewhere it's not saved inside the LoRA. Please give this video a like if you think it will help other people, and subscribe to the channel to be notified when I upload my next one. I'm gonna assume you already know how to use the LoRA, but to cover all the basics, we just need to first load a compatible model, any model in the 9B family, and then load the LoRA in the LoRA dropdown. Now, the LoRA may seem too strong compared to others, but that's punk rock for you. It's not really about making a perfectly balanced LoRA that always lands at 100%. For me, it's about making a concentrated character elixir that can be injected into the render in controlled doses. So I'm adjusting the LoRA weight to suit the render, not the interface. your results and your taste are gonna vary, but for me, the normal range seems to be around 60 to 80% on distilled 9B. And on base 9B, it's more like 30% to 50%. Maybe higher when I use the turbo LoRa. And also adding additional LoRas and style LoRas can shift the weight up or down. You just have to adjust. Now in the opening video, I showed a couple's scene with nudity. Well, I used Censor Cat to cover up the nudity, but so let's talk about explicit anatomy and not safe for work, because obviously our LoRa has no body. Now, Draw Things is uncensored, but Klein 9B is a very safe for work model, even aggressively censoring itself. So by default, nudity in 9B means mannequin smooth anatomy. But it's easy to find online add-on LoRas for male and female anatomy, also couples together, along with explicit poses. Now, I tried several. Some worked better than others. Some competed with the face, I'm assuming because faces were in their training data. And you'll have your own preferences, so I don't recommend any specifically. And now that we have uncensored local training, I might look into making some specifically to work with the head and face LoRas. But, in my opinion, body type goes along with the style choice. So you'll want realistic body proportions for photorealism. You'll want exaggerated body proportions for cartoon and style. And you want sexualized bodies for not safe for work. Now, there's a lot more to say, but I'm gonna end it here, otherwise I'll just keep rambling, so you can get started and try this for yourself. As always, I hope you had a learn and find this video useful. I'll see you next time. Bye!